Morning to everybody. We have with us Kartik joining us from New Delhi today. We are having a very special session of policy careers today. This is primarily, not just for policy students, but also economic students. As you know, a lot of students from economics also go on to work in the policy arena. So I'm very glad to have all of you here. I see a lot of people. I'm assuming that there are a lot of students also from the economics section. So before I begin, I would like to introduce Kartik. I think a lot of you don't need an introduction. You know Kartik very well. He's just graduated, so he's your recent alumni. Kartik joined the 2021 batch of JSGP, and I still remember we started online at that point in time during the COVID. Kartik is one of those very rare students that I've had the opportunity of teaching, who took very seriously my advice to begin the publication journey at the earliest possible time. So just to give you a little bit of introduction on what Kartik is doing now, he's working with the RIS. So before he joined JSGP, he finished his BTech at the Kalinga Institute of Industrial Technology. I think he had a very close mentor and guide. He will tell us a lot more about it. Professor Mishra there, with whom he did a lot of research also after his BTech degree, and he then began his studies at 2021. Between 2019 and 2021, he worked as a research associate there. So during his stint already, he had tried his hand at research. So I think he was itching to begin his writing journey when he joined us. So it was an opportune moment. And during the 2 years of masters, Kartik published 12 pieces. So these are various pieces. I mean, these are some of them are newspaper articles, the opinion pieces. Some of them are blog pieces in some of the blogs in JCP. And finally, the plum on the pudding is the Scopus publication he came up with just at the time of graduation. I remember in the first semester telling Kartik's batch that I finished my master's also with my first Scopus publication. So just before I defended my thesis, I had my publication out. One of the chapters of my dissertation was there, my thesis, master's dissertation. And I think, something like this is a very rare feat to accomplish. It's not easy. It takes a lot of perseverance, a lot of self-motivation, because writing is a very isolating practice. It's something that you sort of sit and do all by yourself. Even if you're co-authoring, a lot of the work that you're doing is by yourself. So you have to have a lot of self-discipline. So I was honestly quite amazed, because during the 2 years, I kept getting these emails from Kartik saying, here's another piece and here's another. And I would say, wow, this guy is really amazing. He's really taken it so seriously. But I think there is also a bit of a method to that process. It's not just that it's not that he started off with the Scopus publication in the very beginning. He started off with various other pieces of writing to then finally arrive at an academic publication. So I'd like to hand it over to Kartik to give us give us his own trajectory. Maybe he can take about between 20 and 30 minutes to tell us how that unfolded, the journey from KIIT, his interest there, his research there, and then his experience in JSGP. What really helped him in this writing process during this journey? Kartik, over to you.
Very good morning, Professor. I hope I'm audible.
Kartik, can I just very quickly interrupt? I just realized I made a mistake. I did not introduce Shilpa. Shilpa Santosh is in the 2022 batch, the batch immediately after Kartik, the 1 year after Kartik. She's with us today and she's hopefully going to moderate. Actually, Shilpa's role is very crucial because sometimes I can take off and not stop talking. So I'm hoping that she can moderate this for us. Shilpa, will you start the moderating? So maybe you
Oh,
can keep an
yes,
eye on the time and keep us on track.
yes, ma'am, definitely. Thank you, ma'am.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thanks. Thank. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Kartik. Over to you.
Yeah, a very good morning, Professor, and hello, everyone. Hi, Shilpa. Thank you so much for such wonderful words. To be honest, it's very odd to hear that I'm an alumni because even yesterday I was talking to some of my friends, and while we are in job, it still feels that the college life was much better. While when we were there, we used to criticize it. We have all the classes and the assignments. It's still better when you not get to return home at 9 p.m. at night. So yeah, and so thank you so much, Professor Kaveri, for such kind words. It's the writing trajectory and everything that we are going to discuss here. When we'll be discussing it, you'll actually realize that as much as it sounds difficult, it's actually a very, very long process that only happens with small steps. And these small steps, when we see it, it doesn't actually look very difficult and is not actually difficult to implement if we are just a little bit focused and strategic about it. Yes, before I joined Jindal, it's during my BTech days, I used to do a lot of Model United Nations, and from there on, I picked up an interest in these socio-political issues that were going around at that time. And from there on, I started to debate, and for that, I had to research. I am sure a lot of you in your undergrad days must be doing these various kinds of debates, whether it be MUNs or some other kinds. So the when I started at that point of time, my dean, who was the School of Civil Engineering, told me that I'm seeing a lot of your discussions on topics which are completely alien to us. So let me introduce you to a professor who's Professor S.N. Mishra, and who's also my guide, my mentor, and the person who actually introduced me to this field, big field of social science and humanities, and the areas which we, especially coming from a science background, we aren't at all aware. So it's actually started from and there on. From it's that the writing part. We used to write a policies and all those things in MUN days, but those I think it's not today. I don't feel that it's right to mention them, like calling them policy briefs and all. It was just kind of fun that we were having, and in the process, you learn a lot. So, Professor, from 2019 till 2021, as Professor Kaveri mentioned, I used to write a lot of articles. I kept writing because Professor Mishra was adamant that you have to write your piece. And the wonderful part was that I kept getting rejected on each of them, but still that push wouldn't just stop, and it was very frustrating because no one would even reply to my mails and anything of and that sort. And it was no when I used to read the edits and opinion pieces in newspaper, it was nowhere even I don't think it was even a Facebook post what I used to write then. And I remember I've written several pieces on asymmetric federalism, the coming up of the agricultural bills, and the UN Human Development Index, and many others. But it hardly ever got published. So the first breakthrough that actually happened was after joining the Jindal School of Public Policy. And before I get into what actually worked, that got this publication and the strategies and the plannings that went behind it. Uh,
Kartik, sorry to interrupt you, but you're muted. I think you're muted right now. Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So we did not hear you for a brief 30 to 40 seconds.
Okay, so I was just saying that before I get into all the strategies and the plannings that I adopted to get this breakthrough and get a lot of publications. That is from 2019 to 22, I had only one publication, while during the course of completing my master's in public policy, I was lucky enough to get 12 publications, as Professor Kaveri mentioned, one of them being a Scopus Springer publication. So before that, I just need to very quickly give you a brief of what actually I was doing before that, before joining JSGP. So after my BTech was over, I got into this uh, RA ship with Professor Mishra, and who actually introduced me to the field of social science. He was working quite extensively on a lot of areas related to education and governance and a lot of issues. And he was a very uh, regular author for many leading dailies. So, what primarily initially in my initial days, my job was to prepare PPT for him. Very little jobs like just brushing up his PPTs, making it presentable, or taking dictations from for his op-eds, or even contributing as a part of the organizing team for ICSR seminars that were organized in my university then. And that actually came quite handy when in my job very recently I had to organize a roundtable discussion, that too in a different city of Kolkata. And as my professor here at CMEC would say, that Kolkata, I'm sure a lot of people would be here from Bengal. So Kolkata is quite a moody place. On a hot afternoon, you'd not expect a lot of people to turn up, even if you are doing a discussion on one of the most pressing issues. So yeah, and that organizing skills or whatever learnings I could draw on from there actually came in useful while I organized this seminar. So you see, you get to learn a lot. So why basically I'm saying all these things? Professor Mishra also published a book, and I did all the background research, the data collection, analysis, and putting things in order. I'm sorry. So basically, I of course I wasn't getting a credit for it, but the my brownie points or the things that I was actually gaining was the experience, the wonderful experience of being a part of this journey and seeing things how actually these things happen, because I come from an engineering background. I have no idea, and it takes time to understand this field. The whole idea of me very quickly narrating this journey was to convey the idea that building a relationship with your professor, your mentor, or your guide, it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes a genuine effort, and it shows. And only then there is a reciprocity. It's not a kind of thing that you today just the professor you today discovered that you are having an interest in, say, gender or a policy political issue with something turning up, maybe a Haryana violence or something, and you quickly go to a professor and you have a very good rapport. It doesn't work like that, and I'm sure it's the same with your friends. You don't build a friendship over a day, it takes years. So it was through these years from 20, and from right from 2019, even during the COVID days, I stayed in touch with him. And it actually through these process that I learned how basically things are done, and I'm still in the process. Even Professor Kaveri, after so much of publications and expertise, she still says that she's still in the process of learning. It takes effort. So I don't know even if I'll ever be able to do such kind of things, but that's the whole idea behind it. Now getting into the second part, which is the journey or the writing journey that happened at JSGP. So in my initial time, I didn't even imagine that or even aimed of publishing in Scopus Index journal. That was way beyond my reach. And what I really wanted to do was to get an article in OPED, uh, opinion pieces or commentaries in the newspaper. And I really worked hard, but I didn't. I had a very hard luck. I didn't have any good publications, except one right back in 2019 or 20. Before that, I didn't have any publications. The idea of getting things published in a journal only struck me, as Professor Kaveri mentioned, that during the class she mentioned her own journey, that while she was in masters, she for each of the semesters, how she planned out and she broke the broader objective into smaller plans, and for each day or each week she had a schedule ready, and at the end then only she had a very good publication based on which she got a great scholarship. And then she met her guide, and I yesterday or just few days ago I saw a wonderful post from her celebrating the birthday of her guide. So yeah, it's a great relationship to build on, and if you put your time and effort, it's a wonderful thing to have it in your life. So it is the I drew my inspiration from that very session of gender and development. That yes, as being in the academic field, I can also aim for that. And even then, the idea was there, the planning, the topic, nothing was in order. But what was in order was the willingness to publish. So I think that before we actually go further with this session, what needs to be answered is, why is it really important to publish? And we must all ask ourselves, we must all have some or the other answers, that why, before we pursue something, we must have to be very clear in our mind about this word why. Um, if anyone would like to take the initiative to answer this, I mean, mm, is would anyone volunteer? If they are attending the session, I'm sure they are interested in publishing. So, why actually do you think publication is important, especially at at this stage?
Go ahead. Does anybody want to answer? Why do you think it's important to publish in the first place?
Okay, let me put things into context. If you are following the current affairs, very recently the UGC chairman or UGC head suggested that even in PhD, it's not important to get publications. So there is this thing on one side, and then we are doing this session here in right in the master's level
On
about publication.
publication. Yes.
So does it really
So
make
come on.
sense?
I'm wondering. I can see a lot of familiar names. I don't want to call out your names. Come on, somebody from 2022
Ma'am,
batch. We've had all these discussions, right? Yeah.
ma'am, I think Akhil is trying to talk. I think he's unmuted his mic
Please.
a couple of times.
Yeah.
Akhil,
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for this session, first of all. But for me, publishing is basically a way to put my thoughts across or the area of my interest across to people, at least to a larger audience. That's why I'm also taking a course on writing this semester to make my writing more like audience friendly, if that makes sense.
Wonderful,
Uh,
Akhil.
thank you, Akhil. I
Uh,
think we have Joel.
Ma'am,
Sanyal.
can I?
Okay, sorry, Shanika.
Yeah, so for me, I guess it would help me to expertise in the particular field of knowledge, hone my skills in that particularly. So when I start writing opinion pieces or things like that, it might help me to understand things better, take comments better, and make myself better in that particular field. So that is my take on publishing articles or any other things.
Absolutely wonderful.
Uh, Hi, hi Kartik. Hi, ma'am. Ishita this side. I
Hi,
think
Shita.
as just Shinigam mentioned, it's also because any arena that we want to work in, the publication has to be backed with a lot of research, like robust, sincere research. And qualitative research is something that as policy makers, one of the skills that they should hone is qualitative research, and publication really is a step forward in that sense. Also, when a person sees that a person has so and so many publications and it has an interest in a certain zone, it also gives a reflection of the person is able to write and reflect on his own opinions in a manner that reaches out to the wider audience and community on various
Mm.
issues, socio-economic, political. So I think it's really important.
S- the answers are absolutely wonderful, Professor. They are bang on.
Hello.
I think there's somebody else also who wants to chip in.
Yes, please.
Someone else? Who's
Uh,
this?
Hello, Kartik. I'm Harsha.
Hi, good
I
morning,
have
everyone. Good morning, ma'am. Ritba here.
Yes. Go ahead.
Kartik, I just had one
Okay, I
question. I mean, I
think
understand that you
Ritba,
had
you can
brought a
go first, and then
backdrop
we'll
to
have
your.
Harsha.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so I just had one question. I mean, I understand that you did a lot of smaller article publications before you backed the Scopus journal, but then I just wanted to know how you actually backed the Scopus publication. That's my question. Like the
Ritba,
Yeah,
process
just
for it
we'll
and
to
how
get
did you go
into it.
through it.
yeah,
So
Ritba, just to interrupt.
right now we are just taking questions on. I mean, I think Kartik asked a question on, why do you think publications are important? So are there other people who, Shilpa?
Ma'am, we'll go to Harsha. She was
Okay.
talking.
Okay.
Harsha,
Hi,
please.
Kartik. Hi, Kartik. We had a conversation about this with Kaveri ma'am yesterday, and I
Oh,
think publication would be important also because it is going to provide us reach, and in the area where we are going to work, people would know about our work, and that would also help us in future in building connections as well. And obviously, we can reflect on our work because it will require a lot of research and stuff, as other members mentioned.
true, absolutely true. So, yeah, just let me put things, all the points taken, and each of the points like basically answers my question, and it's really nice to have these points in order. Now, the thing is that when we are publishing, whenever we go to a car store, apart from all the features that is mentioned in the brochure with a really nice picture and all the things, what really does the trick is the test drive. Because that gives you the feel of the car, the feel of driving, and even if you are sitting there, the feel of that comfort. There are things that only can be felt. And publishing, one of the reasons, apart from everything that you said, one of the reasons why publishing is very important is that it helps you to bring tangibility to everything that is there in your CV, to showcase all of your skill sets, to showcase all of your learnings through your publishing. It's right there. After you have published and you have shared with whether you are going for a job or a PhD, you don't need to justify that you have done this course or you have this skill set. You can use your publishing as a medium to speak for yourself. And of course, the other ideas that you put for that, the background research that goes into it, it hones your skills. It's very true. And those things are obviously in order, but the main point is behind the publishing is that it sets you apart from the general crowd. There are the skill sets that you have acquired, you're putting them to application, and if you can showcase them that, then any recruiter will be really happy that okay, the person doesn't only have the skill set but has the application skills, and can articulate things in such and such way. So maybe they can be really helpful with my project or my task. So that's keeping things that in point. The second, let's actually get down to the broader steps that needs to be followed while getting things in order. So while I said that I didn't have any or only a single publication or opinion piece from 2019 until I joined Jindal, the important reason was that apart from me keeping I kept myself writing and didn't get published, was that I was right aiming for the opinion piece in a newspaper. Maybe a better strategy could have been to aim for blogs. So taking smaller steps at a time can be really helpful. Apart from joining JSGP and getting to learn the analytical depth that is needed in the article and of course the theoretical backing of whatever we are talking, which I'll also talk in detail. But apart from all those things, what we can get our articles published now as a first step, should our aim should be blogs, the very first step, and it's easier to get your opinion published there rather than directly aiming for the op-eds. The second, after you are starting to get your things published in blogs, and there are plenty, even if no one is publishing, you can have your own blogs. So I don't think that this is something very new idea that I'm talking about. There is the second stage that you get into is the op-eds or the opinion pieces and the editorials. That too, not in a top-notch newspaper. Get it done even in a some online portals or even in some daily leading dailies. You don't have to aim very high. Just what your ambition is, your why should be clear, that I need to display my skills, and that can be done by getting it published in any edits or any opinion pieces. After you have mastered that, it takes quite an effort to get through the second stage, and it's not that easy, and I'll be getting into detail on how to get things published at the second stage, op-eds and edits. The third comes the Jindal Journal of Public Policy. And we have in our own school a great platform to explore how the journal thing basically operates. The to and fro, you send it to the editor sends you back, and the process, drafting, redrafting, after it has been accepted, all these to and fro happens only after broadly it has been accepted. The to and fro process goes on for months. For my publication, it went on for 6 months. And then finally, when you've mastered that, simultaneously also you can keep yourself working in that. But the final step comes in where you get things published in a Scopus journal. So these are the broad four steps that one needs to follow. And it's not that today, yes, I need to get published and I'll directly aim for the journal. I'll choose some random topic and then I'll choose a professor and then things will start happening. No, it doesn't happen that way. You need to be very practical about stuff that what is my objective? My objective is to showcase my skills. My skills can also be showcased just on the basis of my blogs or my opinion pieces. And yes, getting a Scopus published has to be my larger objective, but it can't be the only thing that drives me. Because if you keep a very big aim, the chances of getting demotivated or the chances of losing out interest is quite high. But if you keep smaller aims, it motivates you more towards your larger goals. So be a bit strategic in this respect. Now, the second thing, what Professor Kaveri highlighted the most was to handle rejections. And trust me, there will be several rejections. The only thing is to get through this, and I'll
I
talk.
just to interrupt. I think there were several rejections even within the class assignment space.
Yeah, not even assignments. The selection of topics.
The
So you
selection
get
of the topic, how many rejections you get there itself, right?
yes, I think that's a wonderful demo that you have there right in the course of gender and development and law and public policy. The
Yeah,
kind of rejections that you face, and it's really frustrating. So there comes the skill which you build is the persistence. Don't attach yourself emotionally with something that oh I am my things have got rejected, so I'm not going. It doesn't really work like that. What instead you can do is that just have a two broad things. You have sent something, it got published, great, work on something else. If you haven't got it published, no worries. You build a checklist of a few points that why it didn't get published. Now I'll give you a very specific checklist which you can build. That did I follow these broad frameworks that needs to be followed for getting things published? If that is true, then was it related to the contemporary event? Was it in time? Because in edits you have to be very much in time with what has currently happened. Like if the Haryana event has happened today, you can't write about it 6 months later. And
absolutely.
later the structuring and was the structuring okay? Was you were you able to deliver the message? For that, you can get in touch with your professor, your guide, your mentor to ask their review on it, even your friends. And you can yourself review your article if you are reading op-eds daily. And finally, and the most important part, were you offering some new information or research work or analysis through your article, or was it just an information accumulation? The basic idea behind the opinion pieces is that they must offer something new to the public discourse that is already there, some new idea, some new analysis. So this is a very broad checklist on which you can work out. And article after article, when you get rejected, and if you analyze them through these checklists, trust me, you are developing, you are growing, and you are going to reach there if you are doing this and this. That's why I have always kept that these 3 years where I didn't get published, I had this checklist for each of the articles, and this actually helped me more than what actually got published in 2019, or even few articles which got published this time. Finally, I'll get into the strategy. I hope it's not getting boring, but finally I'll
Yeah,
get
but
into the
maybe you can wrap up in about uh, 10 minutes. Would that be fine? So we
yes,
can then
yes.
open up for discussions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So now we are coming down to okay, so you have decided that this will be the framework where you'll be trying to attempt for the blogs, then edits, then journals, and then maybe for the Scopus index. So this is the broad framework. Now, how to basically write for blogs or edits? What should be your approach to do that? What I followed for this approach was a few key points, the basic genesis or the detailed genesis will be taught to you, I'm sure, in the academic writing class. For us, it was done in the gender itself. For in gender
Yeah.
and development, we did actually two courses.
Yeah.
The academic writing.
Unfortunately, that it was only that particular semester where we could not fit in academic writing
Yeah,
in the first semester, but now we are having it in the first semester. So everybody,
that's wonderful.
yeah.
So
So
in
in
the first
gender and
semester,
development, I think we did not do too much. We just did one class, I think, on writing, if I'm correct, right? Just one
yes,
class.
yes. And
Yeah.
that, but the discussion was throughout the assignment process also while writing the
Yes.
assignment,
Yeah. Yeah.
where we are going wrong. So the discussions actually are the things that are taught to you in academic writing. So if you're having that, that's actually great. So
Mm.
the detailed analysis would be done in that. You need to follow that. And that's absolutely no doubt that what I am following, I'll just share that what I do for the publication and edits or comment maybe in blogs is that you need to have a chain, a continuous flow. So you start with an introduction, and the introduction has to be related to the contemporary event. whatever that is happening around you, you just have to keep yourself familiarized with those current affairs, and whatever you have written, whatever you are writing, you need to build upon that, because only those edits or blogs get published which are related to the current affairs. Now the body has to have a underlying theory. Whatever you are arguing, the underlying theory needs to be there, and the conclusion finally needs to answer what you did in what you raised the issue in the introduction. Now see the kind of advantage that you have while you are enrolled in this public policy course right now, vis-a-vis my position where I'm working. The introduction, where you need to be related with the current affairs, the assignments that you have already submitted in the first semester or second semester or maybe previously, you just need to redo that assignment, rework that assignment to relate it to whatever is happening right now. Just go to the op-ed section and see on what you have written. Microfinance, is the government coming out with new finance? Just if you have worked in law and policy on data protection, the government just now passed data policy act. So can you relate it to those bills? Start the introduction with that. So that actually makes your article very contemporary. The body, where I'm talking about underlying theory, that directly comes from the things that you are currently being taught in the various public policy courses, whether it be Professor Swagato's political philosophy or Professor Kaveri's gender or program design course by Professor Melindo or law course, anything. You are learning a theory in each of them. Bring that, because that is very unique. That is not being taught to any of the courses, whether it be economics, political science, any of the social science or humanities courses. That makes your article very unique and publishable. And finally, the conclusion, offer the solution in form of what the questions were raised in the introduction. So it's a chain. You need to return back to from where you started, and this was the broader framework what I followed for each of my articles. I didn't have time. You need to be smart enough that you're not going to write 12 articles, but you have to submit 12 or 14 assignments per semester. Out of those, 50% can be quality assignments, because you also need, I think all of us want good marks, so you must be submitting a quality assignments. Even if 50% of them are quality assignments, just rework on those on these lines what I just suggested, and you have a 6 or 7 per semester article that you can send out to the edits. Out of those, I'm sure that 50%, even 2 or 3, if you get published per semester, out of 4 semesters, you have 10 or 12 publications. So you see, even if you are getting rejected, even if you have only 50% or 40% or even 30% selection rate, you have a very good publication amount by the end of your master's course. And you just have to have 2 or 3 publications to showcase your skills. That's it. And it doesn't have to be a Scopus index, it just have to be through this. So these are the very small steps, and you get results very efficiently, by following these small steps rather than aiming for the sky. One should definitely do that, but through these small steps it becomes easier to get there. Yeah, so that's right. I'll stop myself because I'm sure it's getting a bit monotonous. So yeah.
So, yeah.
So I think I'm just going to very quickly wrap up. Can I do that, Shilpa, before we?
Yes, ma'am.
This one?
Yes, ma'am.
I think just 2 things. I think from what the takeaway from today. The first one is really the role of a mentor, and I think just last week we have once again circulated the mentoring, the mentorship, the mentor and mentee list to the students. So I'm hoping they take that very seriously, get in touch with their mentors and begin to work with their mentors. There is the official mentor on the list. Maybe there is another teacher who is not your official mentor, but you want to work with that teacher. So maybe start taking steps to build relationship, just like Kartik did with Professor Mishra, to build that very long-term relationship. I must say I would not be here today without my mentor and guide, Christine Verschoor. PhD is also a very lonely project. I think that was really the toughest bit in my life. At several points, I think I would have just stopped and come back to India without a PhD degree. So this is just my mentor who kept saying, no, I trust and I believe and I know that you're going to finish this and I know you can go through this. I know you have the strength, right? I mean, I think a mentor and a guide is invested in you because it's more than just that relationship of teacher and student. It's a lot more, right? You begin to want to invest in a student who you are mentoring, and the student also wants to invest in that relationship. So it's much more of a much bigger relationship, the mentoring relationship. So I think that's a main takeaway, right? The importance of building those relationships, because the Scopus Index publication is published once again with your mentor, right, Kartik?
Yes.
And yeah. And the second takeaway is really to not aim at too high and then feel bad when you get a reject, but to start in a very small step-by-step process, right? You don't immediately start with an academic publication. You do a lot of blog pieces and then you do newspaper editorials, and then slowly, and in that process, you get used to the act of writing. And honestly, I think this is it. Each time I write something, even after several years of writing and getting used to writing, it is a new challenge, right? It is you're consistently doing this on a regular basis. I think Kartik must have been writing on a regular basis, on a daily basis. I think you must have set aside at least a few hours, or maybe at least an hour every day to do this writing.
Absolutely. Because I was in touch with my mentor, I had to do it on a daily basis. Even if I wasn't coming out with my own piece, even if I was working on Professor Mishra's piece, I was getting a hang of it, that how things have to be done. And
Yeah.
the learning comes only from doing. When you start writing yourself, even if you're not getting published, the learning from each of those rejections will take you to the next step. And as Professor Kaveri mentioned, it's not a one day thing to get things published or even learn. What I shared is just what worked from me. And as they say, the saying goes that mm, vadanti ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti. There are many ways to get to the publication thing, and you have to discover your own. Your own will come only after you start doing. Then only you'll realize what is actually working for you. So, and you have the perfect platform. Why waste your assignments? You have written so much, you have put in so much effort. Just rework on those. Yeah, I'm sure each one of you would have tried that. You should get a better grade in that. So, even if you haven't got to that a good grade, just rework on those assignments related with current issues. It's not at all a difficult task to get into blogs and then later on build your profile. And get into those things. So yeah.
Thank you,
Shilpa?
Karthik, and thank you, ma'am. So we have a question from Deepthi in the chat box. She's asking how you started the process of building your relationship with your mentor.
Yeah. So thanks, Dipti. So here's I as I explained, I actually wanted to learn about this field, about the vast field of social science, and it's not a one day thing. So you need to be very I don't know to use this word, but very practical, that you're not going to extract a credit or something. It has to be one-way thing initially. You need to do very small stuff, even taking dictations, PowerPoints, be available for professors, constantly be inquisitive about issues, show your interest, genuine interest into some issues if you're genuinely interested in that. And maybe then later on, if the professor is working on something, to involve you in that. and gradually over the years, over months of efforts, you build a relationship and you become a natural choice for the professor. If the professor goes back to you for any urgent work, I remember Professor Mishra had a presentation just tomorrow, and he would mail me at night, and by tomorrow morning I had to be ready with the PPT. So he used to call me lender of last resort, as the RBI is called. So you need to you need to make yourself acquire that position in your professors or your guide's life. And it's really, really helpful because you don't really just have a professional relationship with professor if you build it over the years, but you can also share your personal experiences. It's the guidance is in all form, and that's actually what helps uh, you not only during your 2 years of masters, but even beyond it. It's a lifetime of relationship. So work on it, build on that, and you'll have a plenty lessons to learn. These sessions might be useful to you for even maybe some of the aspects might be useful, but if you are in touch with constantly in professor, the lessons over the years, that's actually going to change your life or the way you think.
Thank you, Karthik, and I hope Deepthi that answers your question. So we have, I think, Joel has raised his hand. Joel, please go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
Joel?
Thank you. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, Karthik, for a wonderful session. And your article on the data protection act had helped me work and know more about the data protection act, and while I was working on it. So thank you for that too.
Thank you so much, Joel.
Um, yeah, I just wanted to ask. We also discussed in Professor Kaveri's class yesterday how newspapers are large. You tend to reach a larger audience, and personally, I believe that newspaper articles are very important. So, working in that bit, can you just speak a little more about how to develop, the relationship with newspapers and journalists, because that is also important. I feel personally, and especially because I saw that you wrote the opinion piece on data protection when you were a student at Jindal.
True.
So, especially when I also speak to my journalist friends, they are very wary of people or students who write. They
Hmm.
don't take in articles from students, and that's a bias that I might be wrong, but that's what I've
Hmm.
got from my journalist friends. So how do you deal with that? And also at the current times or earlier also, it used to happen that a lot of words and lines are scrutinized when you write opinion pieces.
Hmm.
Even if you are a student or even an MP, there is scrutiny, and probably
Absolutely.
those points would, at least for you, it would have been the most important point. But at the end of the day, for the newspaper,
Mm.
they would have scrutinized it. So how do you deal with that disappointment? Because there is a sense of disappointment when that is not appearing in the newspaper when you read it the next day. So yeah, that's all. That's my question. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joel, for such a wonderful. I'm glad you read that article and such a wonderful question. Yeah, so answering to your one thing that you talked about your journalist friend, I had none, to be honest. And what I used to do is I would just send out random emails to all the people, and naturally to some I would get replies, and you do get replies actually. You would think that you won't, but you do get replies. Even I get replies from EPW about rejections. So it's a really nice thing to have emails of rejections in your inbox. So you can reach out to Print, Quint, and many other editors directly through their email IDs.
Yeah,
But
the
what
Wire,
actually
Print, Quint,
all all of those. But
Scroll.
what
Yeah.
actually would help you out, the second step, apart from this, as Professor Kaveri mentioned, scroll also. So, what actually could help you out is again, I'm getting back to the foundation, building a relationship with professor. if you have a professor who's working on such lines, they all the professors have a very good connections with the editors, and they know what exactly gets things published. So to answer to your question that how to write things that are not very construed in a wrong way by editors or something, you can run those through your professor and ask them to connect to you. Again, it doesn't happen in a day. You can't just reach out to a professor and send them their articles and please send it to a print or no, it doesn't work like that. You have to build your own relationship while you are in this course, and you then need to, this tendency of being asking for reciprocity is not the right way to go. Just be available, do small, even if you're getting to do small stuff for them, grab that with your both hands and do it. And trust me, professors reciprocate in much larger way than you would even think that they would do for you. So first show your genuine interest, and that's what actually worked out for me. Apart from, I also got my internship through random mail, so one should always keep doing that. There's no way to stop that, but this also should be a simultaneous strategy, that reaching out to your professors and sharing them your assignment, your reworked assignment, asking for comments, and then asking that can it be sent to a proper journal. The Quint has got published only because of Professor Sweta Shri, who was my professor for the Policy Action Lab. So yeah, it works through in that way. It's multi-pronged approach. It's not just a very ironclad single strategy that works for you. I hope I answered you well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just Professor Kaveri very rightly, before starting the course, asked us how to write a cold email and helped us, So thank you, ma'am, for that too.
No, I didn't do
And you,
anything. I just shared a link on how to do this. One of these YouTube videos on how to write, how to approach somebody. How do you write
and get
emails?
involved with your professor. Your professors are writing regular articles. You must be getting them in your inbox. So read those, share your comments with your professor. That's also how you build a connection. So it's not that you approach a professor with a single aim that I need to get published, so I'm approaching a professor. No, you approach a professor because you need to build a relationship.
Thank you, Karthik. Do we have any other questions? Anybody? Okay, so in the
Any?
meantime, I actually had a question for Karthik. So, you had mentioned that you'd written for op-eds in newspapers and all that. So you started with regional newspapers. So can you help us name a few? Like, because when we think of newspapers and op-eds, we always think about the national newspapers like the Hindu or the Times of India or
Indian,
Indian Express. So so the exposure that we have is mainly to national newspapers and op-eds and editorials in that regard. So could you help us find some regional newspapers, and could you name a few if you could?
yeah. What of the papers? What I wrote for is a very popular newspaper in Odisha. And some of them were this Odisha. Hello. Yeah,
Yes,
so
yes.
some of them were Orissa Post. I think the political economic weekly. No, that's not the one. There are a few. The Orissa Post. Then there are blogs posts. There are blogs. I'll mail you all the list where I was approaching, but I wasn't just limited to that. There are three or four where I have got my things published. But apart from that, as Professor Kaveri mentioned, you should try approaching these online portals like Scroll, Print, Quint, and these
Why?
people are via these people are very responsive, and even if you are not getting your articles aren't getting selected, they'll reply to your mail. You might not get replies from these
Bigger
uh,
newspapers.
yes, bigger newspaper or even the regional newspapers, because they are not
Yeah.
very active. Only if your article is worthy publication, only then I had got an email from them. So this is my learning that from 3 years I didn't even get a reply. So approach these online portals instead, because you get a reply from them. And
Mm.
if you are in touch with your professor, you'll get a comment also why it didn't get published, apart from the checklist that you already have.
So
Yeah,
there is
thank.
Deepti's comment. Can you read that out, Shilpa? I think
Yeah,
Deepti.
yeah. So Ditya suggested Rajasthan Patrika, then Amar Ujala for UP, and Rajasthan Patrika for Rajasthan and UP, MP, sorry. So I'll take that also into note. And we have Divyanshi. Divyanshi, you can please proceed with your question.
Hi, Karthik. So I just had one
Divyanshi.
question. Yes, with regards to your publication, I mean portfolio only, I just wanted to ask you a query. So now you have mentioned the great significance of having a mentor to guide you throughout the entire process, especially getting a very tangible result for publication. But I was just wondering, as an alternative, if the student wants to venture into the realm of publication on his or her own without the exact dominant presence of a mentor in the form of a professor or somebody. Is that a good strategy to adopt, or should that be subjected to any sort of modification? And what is the extent of success in this strategy vis-a-vis that of having a mentor per se?
Uh,
And that's a good question, actually. I mean, it's not easy for students to find mentors, or maybe it's too late and they're finishing their degrees. So what do they do then, right?
Professor, the voice got disrupted. If Shilpa can just repeat the question.
Okay,
Yeah.
want me to go through it again once?
Yeah, just
Yes.
quickly, Divyanshi.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, voice for the voice being disrupted. Actually, I just wanted to know that since you have had such brilliant publications in your name, and you've also mentioned the point about having a mentor to guide you through the entire process, do you recommend any specific mode of strategy that a student without a mentor can adopt to achieve the similar rate of success, or anywhere close to what you have got as of now? And whether this is even a good strategy to adopt, secondly, and what can we do to change it if it's not the optimum way to go about it?
Okay, thank you so much, Divyanshi, for that question. The thing is that a mentorship plays a very critical role, especially in this academic field. And I don't know if there's any field where mentorship wouldn't play a role. The self-learning is always there, and it has its own importance. But while you are enrolled into an academic institution, uh, and if you genuinely try, apart from the mentorship program that is already there, but if you genuinely try to get connected to a professor, you actually, if you want to learn something, the art of publishing or art of writing or the art of even learning about this field, one needs to have a guide by their side, a person to whom they can really ask them a very basic of the question or even silly questions. And that's why I feel that you need to establish a relationship with the professors you are in touch with, that whom you are being taught by. So you might not be interested in one subject, but one area, one issue might be of interest to you. So find those professors, share your views. First, get interested into some issues. Find whatever the courses they are offering. Be interactive in class. Be inquisitive, and that itself will prompt the professor to have a connection with you. And um, there is a way, the online platforms and things can offer you the learnings through which you can get publications without the guidance of the professors. but I don't think the learning, the publishing is not as big an achievement, or nowhere even an achievement, as far as the learning that goes into your own skill set while you are in touch with a professor. So please get in touch, establish this relationship, because it's a lifetime of a relationship, and you will benefit not just academically, but also in your professional careers. So do get touch in that. I'd strongly recommend that, and that has worked out for me.
Yeah. So maybe I can
Thank
just say a few words on that before we take Rutva. I think Rutva has raised her hand. So just to
Yes, ma'am.
say that I think in all the courses that we are having, at least in JSGP, most of them you're given an assignment to writing on a particular topic. If you can begin your relationship there with any one of the professors who's teaching you, right? And to take the comments that they provide you seriously, and work or rework your assignment based on comments. I think I generally do this whole draft process where students give me their first draft and I give them comments. This is after the selection of the topic, because in the selection of the topic itself there are lots of comments, and then they do their first draft, they get comments, and then their second draft. I see a lot of students who finish and they have that final assignment, and I do write to them and I tell them this is really good. Please consider publishing this. I think I've done that even in Karthik.
Yes,
I do it in every
absolutely,
class. Please
absolutely.
consider, keep this in mind. If something comes up, some new, event that you can link this up to, consider publishing it. And I must say that every year, at least 2 to 3 students begin that. They start with their first newspaper article or a blog article in the least. And most of them actually really good assignments. They write a newspaper piece. So when you approach your teacher for comments on your assignment, I don't think there's going to be a single teacher who's going to refuse, right? I don't know, Karthik. Have you had that experience? I don't think there will be a single teacher who would say, "Listen, I'm not going to give you comments," right?
I
Everybody is
remember,
so
I
willing
remember,
to help you
Professor.
out.
I remember, Professor, after the online classes in the first semester, in the second semester, Professor would even sit with me in the canteen. They'll also offer me a
Yeah,
coffee, and then they'll discuss with me in detail about the assignment.
yeah.
So they are more than willing to do that. And
So
there, yeah,
if you have that already, like that's the first step, right? And then you build on that, right? And
mm,
you say, well, I did this assignment for you. I published it after the course, and the professor will be very happy, of course, that something of value came
yes.
out of that course. So you begin your relationship that way.
The Jindal Journal of Public Policy, which I published recently on the impact of public policy, I used the entire program design theory in that very article. And I shared with Professor Milindo, and he doesn't really get happy about things, but he was really glad to see that something good came out of this thing. So whenever your professor teaches you, and if you start applying those, I don't think you can give a better gift to your professor apart from what he has taught you. So please apply that and just share with your professor and see the kind of reciprocity that you get from them. It's just amazing. And I have got much more mentorship in the JSGP than anywhere else, even in my BTech. I didn't take an initiative and I didn't get any reciprocity. And in JSGP, I was very active. I kept disturbing professors. Yes, I didn't get replies also because I was disturbing them a lot. But when they were free, they were so happy to receive and replies. So please get in touch with the professors. They are really, really helpful here.
Thank you, Karthik, and thank you, ma'am. I think we'll take Rudba's question. She's been waiting for a while. Rudba,
Yes.
we can please.
Hi, Karthik. Hello, ma'am. I was I was going to ask, like, some of us, like Shilpa, Srinika, me, we've already been interning, and some of us have their publications out with the organizations that we were working on, and some were trying to get our publications out, and like they're in the editing processes. So while we
Mm,
understand that process of like blog publication and stuff like that. I was very specifically interested in how you back the Scopus publication. For those of us who want to get into academia later, and ma'am, I also have an extended question through that for you. We're also going to be starting writing our dissertation proposals and our dissertation next semester. And you said that you published your, like before you had your dissertation out, you already had a chapter out in publication. So like, but it's a kind of a question that extends to both of you. How do you just bag on to Scopus publications? For example, for EPW, something that I wrote on urban planning, they told me to wait, and then the waiting period's long, and then they'll get back and stuff. So for some of us who specifically want to niche in academia, and we have our niches down, and because we're in our second year, so we already have a rapport with the professors. We've already worked on a lot of assignments, so we have our ideas a little more. They're not as hazed as they used to be in first year. So if you could like give us a little rundown onto that cleaning process of the end and the Scopus publication, I think that'd be great. Thank you.
You already have done all the groundwork that's required, and I'm really happy. So the first few things that you could do is, since you have already gone through the blog process and everything, you might have structured it and everything. Now, what you can do is get a list of the public policy journals or on whatever issues you have written a journal related to that list from the library. Apart from they are already available online, you can always refer to them, what journals are there,
There
but
is
a very
that is
concise
the
list.
Scopus link is also there, Kartik. So the schema.org,
Yes,
you can go
yes,
online
yes.
and see which are the journals on schema.org.
Mhm.
SCIMAGOGR or something like that. You can
Yes,
just do Scopus and you will get schema.org, the link, and you can you can even do a topic search. And you get all the
yes.
Scopus listed journals on that web link. And maybe I will share that with you right now.
Yeah, ma'am, I also have a follow-up
This
question.
exact
I'm
thing
so
that Professor Kaveri, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This exact
Yeah.
thing that
yeah.
Professor Kaveri mentioned, the library sent me a video of entire process of how to get through this thing. So
Mhm.
if you get into through library, you'll get the entire list and also the process of how to finding out. Then comes the process of going through those journals and what is their publication style, what is the mm, pattern that they are following. So you need to put your articles in that very format and then send it out to whatever journals that you have aimed for. The second approach is also which works is getting enrolled, or whenever there is a conference and there is a call for paper, you just send your papers in those conferences in whatever if you have written for sustainable development, then if there's a sustainable development conference, get into that. And that also gets you if your paper is selected there, if you also you also get an opportunity to present your paper there and also have a publication on back of it. So both these approaches work. The first one is will take a lot of effort. The second one will also do so. But yeah. So and of course, on the all these three lines, the constant guiding force will be your professor, whom you can always ask that I am stuck in this stage, or they haven't replied, or what's wrong, or how I can build up in that. And if you visit the site that Professor Kaveri mentioned, you'll understand the structure also that various journals follow. They have their own structure, different
Mm.
journal. Even JJP has its own. So you'll
Yes.
do, yeah.
So
Professor,
maybe
I have
I
a
can
following
just
question.
Answer the second, answer one bit of that question that Ruthma asked. My publication in this dissertation, that chapter publication, it was in a journal called Gender and Development. It's an Oxfam publication. So they work on a call for papers basis. You can check up that journal if that's something that you would be interested in writing. There are several journals that do a call for papers. So these journals, they will have, let's say, 2 or 3 issues a year, and they will have each of those issues planned much in advance, and you will get to know the deadline very much in advance. So you will have a deadline for the submission of your article for publication, And if your article is accepted for that particular, call for papers, that particular theme. So they will have 3 themes a year, and let's say one theme is gender and conflict. And the deadline for submission might be October 2023. I mean, I'm just giving you this hypothetically. And then when you submit it in October, they will respond to you within a month of submission to tell you whether it has gone through or not. And if it has gone through, they will give you another 3 or 4 months to refine, put in, include certain comments that they have and send the final version. So this is much more easier to publish because these are time specific. Either you're accepted for that particular theme or you're not. And so gender and development, I submitted just arbitrarily like that, wondering, whether they would accept it. But I was very lucky. They only asked for a small abstract on what I wanted to publish. And I submitted that. And then I had 3 or 4 months to complete the article, the final version, and submit it. And then they had another, comments process. But I think if I'm right, even that took me about 8 months, despite the fact that it's a much shorter process. To finally, finish the final end product and send it in, it took me 8 months. So you should keep an eye out for call for papers oriented journals.
Thank you, ma'am. I think we have another question from Joel.
Yes. Yeah.
I first of all want to apologize for taking too much of time of the group. The thing is, I came.
Joel, we cannot hear you if you're talking. You're muted right now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I apologize. I came to Jindal to learn the art of writing because I really write really badly. So I had 2 questions. One of which might be an extension of Rutba's question. Kartik, as you really mentioned that when you write about a contemporary issue, it should not be 6 months after it has happened. So when you write to newspapers or journals, like I had written about how the Karnataka free bus ride policy was exclusionary, but I was asked to wait by the wire because there were some couple of other articles with them. When I really wanted to publish with the wire, I didn't want to publish with anyone else because I thought wire gives me the proper audience. But that time period now, it has been 3-4 months now. So that timeline has lapsed. So how do you deal with that? And the second question is, how do you navigate quality over quantity? Because even I had published one of my papers, but now that I read it, it is really bad. And if anyone looks it up, I would be really disappointed and I would not want anyone to read it. So how do you deal with that? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Joel, for the question. The first or the initial publications are always very special, even though they aren't readable few years later. But those are the things that actually got you the breakthrough. So yeah, so that's the thing. The second thing is that at the initial stages, is that you should approach when you're done with the article on the contemporary issue and you are within a week's time, not maybe 2 weeks at the latest, but you need to send it out to more and more portals or blogs or newspapers as much as possible. So you might think that you'll have a direct relationship with the editor, and they'll be expecting you to give them a blog on any issue, or they'll be reaching out to you to offer opinion. But at the initial stages, you should not be stuck with only one, that is Wire, and or any one in particular. Reach out to all and see if any one of them are interested, and if anyone accepts, just inform the others that it has already been accepted, so thanks. And if not, then start working on why it didn't get published on the basis of the checklist. And Yeah, that's the approach I followed. I never sent out only to one because I was sure that most of it is getting rejected. I have a good
Yes.
experience in
Yeah,
that.
for newspapers, I think you're not required to only send it to one. For academic publications, sadly, we cannot submit it to many journals at the same time. Because
Yes.
if it has an acceptance in several journals and then you get into trouble later on, you're not allowed to do that for
Mm.
academic publications. You have to submit it to one journal. Once you have a reject, only then can you submit it to another journal. But for newspapers, I would say just write to a bunch of them. I mean, I've always had situations where immediately, I think the online media, Scroll, Wire, the print, they immediately take up my stuff, whatever it is that I'm sending them. They respond very quickly, and so they publish also very quickly because these are online formats. And I've had many cases where after it has been accepted and I've done the edits once again, resent it, I get a message from the Hindu or from the Deccan Herald or from Indian Express saying, well, we would thank you for the submission. We would like to publish it. But then I have to tell them, well, now it's too late because somebody else has already taken it up. So I
Mm.
think the mistake is to wait for one person to don't do that, because if it is a
Yeah.
timely thing, you need it out immediately, right? The person who picks it up first will get it. And once
Uh,
that person does it, you can always write to the other people and say, I retract my piece because it's been accepted elsewhere.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Karthik. So I think we have Pratik's question. We'll take that next, and I just wanted to
Yes.
say, like, we'll take our last couple of questions because it's almost 1.5
Yes.
hours. And
Almost done. Yes,
Mm.
yeah,
yes.
so Pratik, do you have a question? You had raised your hand. Okay, then I think that was probably a technical glitch. So anyone else,
Okay.
any questions or anything, then we can, if not, we can move to the concluding remarks of the session.
All right.
Yeah, I
Any
just
other
have
questions? I
one
think
of the following
Rutuba.
questions.
Yes.
Yes,
I think
Rutba.
Yes,
is that
ma'am.
Rutuba
Uh,
again? Yes. I think she wanted to ask something in between, and I cut her off.
yeah, no, that's fine,
Yeah.
ma'am. So there are a couple of like journals who do self-publication, right? I think it's ISRTJ, and a couple of them like they call for you, and they are like UGC approved and stuff like that, and then they review your publication, and then within but that's like more of a quick process. I haven't really gone through it, but I wanted to know, like, is that a good idea? Is it just
Why? I mean, I would say that the Jindal JJPP, I mean, Jindal Journal of Public Policy, is pretty quick. It's a pretty quick process. I've reviewed several articles for them, and they work
mm-hmm,
pretty fast. And I really like the way they work because they send it out to a bunch of people. They get peer review comments and
mm-hmm.
send it to you. So you get very, very detailed comments on what is working, what is not working, and then they have resubmissions, and that takes place pretty fast. So, for instance, if I've commented on an article, I generally get that resubmission within 2 or 3 weeks of having sent my comments. So, I think you should start with JGPP, given that you're part of JSGP. Take advantage of that. You
Yes,
have
ma'am.
Indranil and Manini heading the journal, so
Mm.
no better people to handle it than them. So, maybe start with that because that will give you. I think Kartik should tell us how that worked out. Kartik, he
The
published in
JJ
JGP. So,
the
yeah.
JJGP platform is exceptionally well developed. You can actually track your progress where
Mm,
it is currently lying, and
mm,
in what time you can expect the things to be get into the next stage. So there are various stages where you first submit the article, then there is an acceptance or rejection. If there is an acceptance, then the first peer review is to be come by that day, and you can actually track because you have your own profile there, and all the submissions that you make at JJPP are in one place, and for each they have a very well developed tracking mechanism. And I haven't seen for a lot of these portals who or any other people who are doing this. So please start with JJPP, and whenever they offer comments, that too is in a tracking mode in the MS Word where they'll be even stating the reasons why this has to be modified. So it's actually you're not only getting published, but you're learning through the process that how actually you should have approached it in the first place. So it's a very, very wonderful demo or the prerequisite what based on which you can build on for Scopus index journals or other international journals. Yeah.
So
Thank
for
you.
those, just one last word, Shilpa. I mean, those of you who are still not in the, at the level of doing a JJPP, journal publication, I would say maybe start off with something that Kartik did, which is writing blogs. That's extremely important. Arthaniti, which is run by our economics students, might be a good place to begin with. Kartik also published in Arthaniti, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I didn't come up with some new idea to publish in Arthaniti. I worked on my assignment, which I had submitted in my previous
Yeah.
semester. I linked it with the 75th year of independence, or yeah, I linked in with UK, India overtaking UK to become the fifth largest economy. And I had basically analyzed the pre-independence, the post-independence economic policies, and I just linked it by saying that in the introductory paragraph that since India has overtaken UK, let's have a overview of the economic policies adopted over the years. So while the assignment was completely on Professor Sandeep Dixit's course of policy and politics, I took the current event and it got published in Arthaniti blog. And yeah, I have 3 articles which were rejected by JJPP also. So be ready for that and keep approaching all the platforms. You have 3 blogs, 3 or 4 very popular blogs in OP Jindal with JSIA, JSBF. All are offering. There's constant mails also call for posts or call for articles. So send your assignments to them by reworking with contemporary events that whatever is happening around. Yeah.
So thank you, Karthik, and thank you, ma'am, again. So again, any final last question from anybody? If not, we'll conclude the session.
I don't
Okay.
think so. It's already 12:30. I think everybody's tired,
Yes.
and I'm
Yeah.
hoping that everybody has enough to take back and think about this, mull over this. How do you begin? So thanks a lot, Shilpa. Would you like to say a few words before we close?
Yes, ma'am. Nothing else. I just wanted to say that this has been a very interactive session, and I'd like to thank Karthik also for taking his time out of his hectic schedule and to agreeing to have a session with us like this. And thank you, ma'am, for moderating the entire session and guiding us through the.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping
So
us
I
on
just
track
wanted to
very much,
formally conclude
Shilpa.
the session.
Yeah, please.
Sorry, ma'am, your voice was breaking off.
Yeah, I said please go ahead. I think you're formally concluding. I just
Oh,
want to say,
yeah.
after you finish, I just want to say a few words. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. I just wanted to formally conclude by again thanking Kartik Kishore, one of our alumnus of JSGP, and Professor Kaveri, who is also our associate dean of JSGP. I just wanted to thank 2 of them, and I want to thank everybody who's participated in this session and made it a very interactive and fruitful one. So thank you for that also. Handing it over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm just going to, close the session by leaving it open for another session soon, which we are going to have. We had originally planned to have Priya Tiwari on the 26th of August, Saturday at JCP, but then Dean Sudarshan suggested that it would be nice to have her on a Wednesday afternoon lecture, and 23rd of August is apparently free. Priya is also able to come on that day. So the 23rd of August, we are going to have an in-person session with Priya Tiwari in JSGP. So all of you, please be prepared. Keep the afternoon free. And Kartik, if you can join us, that will be fantastic. What we will also do, I mean, that session, the 23rd, will be really one of those personal meeting kind of sessions where she gets to meet students, and she's very interested in meeting the current students. But we will also have probably a later online session so that we can, record something and put it out for students. The recording obviously is available on your chat box. Those of you who want to look at it and who were not able to attend can take a look at it. You can share it with other friends. I mean, I originally opened this out only to JSGP because I felt, our students need to be prioritized. But please feel free to share this with other students. If you need permissions, let me know. I can provide those permissions. They can take a look at the recording. At some point, this will be online on YouTube, so you can then more easily share it with other people. I think this is really such an important session, and I think it's so timely because we have started with a fresh batch of master students, and then we have Shilpa's batch. This is 2022 batch, who have done that first year and gone through the rigor and the pains and the frustrations of writing, so they already know. And now they are really ready to take the next step, the higher step, publishing in journals, working papers, and more research-oriented writing. Thanks so much, Kartik, for sharing this trajectory. I think there's so much useful advice in all of this. I thank you for your time, and I thank everybody else for their time. Thank you for being here today, taking the time to participate. And I will meet you again on the 23rd of August for our meeting with Priya Tiwari. And until then, I hope you keep thinking about all the wonderful tips and strategies that Kartik has given us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor,
Thanks.
and for arranging this session, and also for being the constant source of encouragement and guiding us throughout this process. I'm sure I'll be reaching out. You'll be getting those mails regularly for again seeking out advices and
Always,
comments.
always willing to, always happy to help.
Yes. So yeah. Uh, and
Yeah.
I'm extremely glad to interact with my junior batches, and we should have a platform like this to build a
Yes.
strong connect, which is very important to have a public policy and connect with our own schools. Yeah.
I've also shared Kartik's LinkedIn profile, so please check him out, connect with him. The new students who have not had the time or the occasion to interact with Kartik, please use that link to connect with him. And hopefully, if Kartik is in campus, the next time maybe we can arrange an in-person session like we are doing for Priya, right?
I'll be extremely glad to interact with my juniors. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Kartik. Have a wonderful day, everyone.